And recording. Recording is also in progress. Hello, hello. We'll wait like one more minute. We'll wait one more minute. And apparently the video is private. That we're streaming on YouTube. Not sure. Hi, Marce.
Yeah, I think you're streaming because I got a notification.
Awesome. Okay, so if we're live on YouTube, hello YouTube as well. Hi everyone, and welcome back to Neuroccino. Exciting. We're back from South Korea, Japan, everywhere. Summer holidays. I hope you had a blast. I hope you had a great vacation. Today, I don't know which paper we're going to present, but I know that Eva is presenting, who nailed her master's and graduated last week with the highest score as far as I am concerned. So congrats on that. And yeah, without any further ado, I'm happy that you're all back. Eva, take it away.
Thank you so much. I think you need to allow me to share my screen.
Right.
Send the link on the chat.
Right, I have to put it into YouTube as well. I am making you co-host and gonna take care of the YouTube people. Okay. Can you share?
Yes, I apparently didn't have some.
No worries, take your time.
I think I need to go out and come in again because
All good, all good. We can wait, we can wait. So no worries. So I could have also probably shared the screen, but yeah, we'll just wait a second for Eva to come back, and I will try to get somehow the YouTube streaming going. There we go. Welcome back. You're muted, just to let you know.
Thank you. It's working now. So, okay. Can you see my screen?
Yes, we can.
So today's paper is going to be one where they generate tractography from T1-weighted images. That was published in Imaging Neuroscience. And yeah, I'm just gonna walk you through, first of all, their motivation to do this comes from that high quality diffusion imaging is hard to acquire, can have high influence of noise, and so in the clinic it's not acquired as much. And then in research, it's also limited to those who know how to pre-process it and really make use of it. So they wanted an alternative method that you could perform one tractography reconstruction on its own, that you also only needed routine clinical data, such as the T1 image, and that it would be open source and easily implementable. So there's already one solution for this, which is an atlas or a population-based tractogram, but here we lose specificity, and especially in subcortical white matter where there's more variability, we're losing a lot of information. Other solutions that have been proposed are only for voxel-based analysis or for whatever analysis was the model was trained for. So it's more restrictive and you basically just don't get a full tractogram. And their solution that was already published is to do streamline propagation directly from T1-weighted images. However, this paper had a couple limitations. It had a very small sample size and it was only tested on healthy adults. So they wanted to extend their investigation to a larger sample and also to try to reproduce clinical tractography effects from the literature. So specifically, they looked into white matter degeneration in an aging population, also brain disorganization in major depressive disorder, and finally, pre-surgical evaluation for epilepsy and tumor patients. So more about the model itself, it would be similar to what a propagator would do on the diffusion-weighted image, but on the T1. And it takes the T1 itself, and for training also a tissue type mask of 4 tissue types. Then also a segmentation of 46 regions, you can see here as part of the training model. And then also finally 42 tracts dissected with TractSec, which is an automatic method for dissecting these tracts. And this is put together in a teacher-student type of training, which I am not very knowledgeable in, but essentially this is from their previous publication, what the training would look like. So after they were done with this, they left 10 out from the training, and they evaluated bundle analysis and connectomics in this set of 10 people. But they now wanted to repeat this with 38 participants instead. And the way they have set up this project, it allows to investigate the error of this model against scan-rescan, because they have 2 scans from the same participant and then the T1 from which they can do this model to see the tractography. So they investigate, first of all, the bundles through a metric of bundle agency, which the higher, as I understand the metric, the worse it is, because it indicates more of a distance. And then the dice coefficient, which the higher it is, the more overlap between voxels we see, so the better. Then for connectomics, we have, first of all, Pearson correlation between the metrics, and they also reduce this to 3 metrics of the connectome and see if there are differences between these 3 specific ones. And well, they wanted to compare this to an atlas-based method as well to better frame sort of the how well this method does, because it may be worse than tractography itself, but maybe better than using an atlas directly. So to look into aging, they they first look into the volume and surface area of forceps major, minor, and then for connectomics, they have a association with maximum modularity and age. And they also do this with an atlas-based approach. Then for depression, they try to group the people based on a classifier from a previous publication as well, and also do this with an atlas. I'll show you the figures in a minute. And then for epilepsy, they look into seizure onset zones and propagation zones in comparison with zones that are not involved. And these were shown to have differences in tractography analysis. So they try to reproduce these. And finally, for the tumor resection, they use only 1 patient and evaluate if they would get the same information about which tracts are going to be impaired, or which ones are being taken up by the tumor entirely. So to zoom into the results, I'll show you the figures directly, because this is the evaluation on the healthy participants, and visually we can already see some differences between the reconstructions. This is from a scan from diffusion imaging and then generating tractography, and this is the model that they're proposing. Here they highlight some specific connectivity differences, and yeah, they say that they are visually, you can appreciate them visually, but that this is not necessarily so different that they would have to stop their analysis, so we can keep looking in a more quantitative way. And first, they assess bundle agency. So you can see that it is a bit higher here with the model that they're proposing, but it's even higher with the atlas. Then for the dice coefficient, there's actually no difference between the retest and their model, whereas there is quite a difference with the atlas. And in terms of volume, length, and span, there are differences between their method and the retest. And of course, always difference with the atlas and the retest as well. And finally, for surface area is where they do see a good agreement between their method and retest. In terms of the connectome correlations, the Pearson correlations, yeah, there are significant effects for all the different groups and things used. But then when they look at three specific metrics derived from this connectome, this was the maximum modularity, average betweenness, centrality, and this is the characteristic path length. They don't see differences between the first two of them, whereas you can see that the atlas sometimes is really far off from the other two. Now moving into the clinical analysis, this is the figure from the previous study where they see this negative correlation of volume of the forceps minor with age. And these are the results that they produced with the retest, their model, and then the atlas. So you can see that the correlation, this association with age, is preserved only in the tractography analysis and not in the atlas one. And well, we have a bit more of error here in their model for volume, but overall, we could still see this effect even without actual diffusion tractography. They compare more specifically, the effect sizes and the p-values, but I'll focus on the next result, which looks at the connectome mix. So they calculated maximum modularity in respect to age. And well, you may wonder why there is a difference between where these lines start, but they say that this is a bias that they would expect. Also, if you have different scanners, you might see this difference. So it's not an issue. What they want is to preserve the distribution in the data. So this is what we can see, that there is this this relationship that is there significantly for both these methods, the original, the retest and their own, but not significantly for the atlas. So this was quite successful in these two. And when we move on to the depression sample, the patients with depression, they were able in this original study to really separate them really well with this classifier. In this case, the distribution was not so clear-cut, but they could still find significant differences with the retest and with their method, although the one with their method had a lower effect size. But overall, I would still be able to capture it. Not with the atlas though, where they were not significantly different. Then they also compare specific regions of a streamline count connection for those regions. And I believe it was about half of them have good agreement also with the method that they propose. Now moving into the epilepsy patients. Here they were trying to find a difference between the seizure and the propagation areas with the areas that are not involved. And their method was only able to see the difference between the propagation and the not involved areas. Whereas the atlas actually could see the seizure and the not involved area difference. And this is arguably the most important one, actually, the one that the atlas is able to capture. And what they think is the reason for this is that their method is less suited to construct short connections. And the authors of the original publication described this effect between the seizure areas and the non-involved areas was quite driven by these short connections. So if these are not reconstructed as well, then maybe this is not a good application for this method. Right, and now a few points of the discussion, mainly that we have seen that there are differences between their method and the retest. But actually the difference is within the range that has been considered of between session variability in diffusion-weighted imaging. So although there might be a difference really in the context of what differences we already see, this is not huge. There might be applications where this is better, or I'll comment on the tumor as well. I'm sorry, I forgot. But this is the one patient where they performed the tractography and saw if the tumor invaded the same areas or if there were terminations going into the tumor for the same tracts. And overall, they comment on pretty good agreement and just that this could be a good option in this case. But going back to this discussion, yes, there is an amount of variability that is considered okay in this context, but there may be some applications where it's better suited this method that they're proposing. Now, they say that this method can only improve because it was so far only trained on 80 people. So there's still work to be done for further training and refinement. And I want to highlight some limitations that they comment on. So first of all, right, so their definition of clinical variability may not be encompassing really all clinical populations or tractography applications. So there's still work to be done to better describe how this method might affect the results in different populations and for different applications. Then this model is evaluated in aging and depression patients and the rest, but trained on healthy population. So actually, we are seeing how a model that has never seen any of the clinical population can perform in this clinical population. So this is seen as a strength of the test of the out of distribution effects. Additionally, we may be measuring a different signal to that of the diffusion MRI, as we can also see with not being able to reconstruct the short fibers. But it depends on the type of analysis that we're going to use if we're going to focus more on the shape and the boundaries of each tract. We may not require exactly these short fibers to always be included. So overall, this is not yet ready to be a tractography replacement, but they think it's really on the way, and it offers just a better solution than other alternatives that are widely used, such as the atlas. And that they think there's also still more things they can do, such as take the streamlines they reconstructed and sort of work this back onto the fiber orientation distributions, because there's sometimes analysis that work on directly the information from those distributions. They also expect some loss in performance when the input is not isotropic data, which would be the same for the diffusion-weighted imaging, I believe. And finally, that although they could replicate many of the results, the effect size for these results was lower. So in the end, if you require more people with T1 to find the same effect, maybe at some point you would just rather acquire the diffusion-weighted imaging, and that would be easier. So that is a bit of a trade-off that still needs to be better defined. And I think that's all I wanted to comment on. So yes, I hope you liked it, and let me know your questions.
Perfect. Thank you so very much, Eva. You already dipped into the discussion basically with your last comment, and I already see 2 hands up. Cool. We don't have too much time. We have like about 10 minutes for discussion. So Chris, I think you were first. Go ahead.
Yeah, thank you for presenting the paper. One thing that I find a little bit misleading is to talk about reconstruction from the T1. I don't think that's correct from what they're doing, because it seems to be more that the model is relating the T1 viability to the variability in the tractographies it used for training. But I don't think you could have the information required to actually reconstruct a tractography from the T1 ever, because you don't have any directions, you don't have that information. So it has to just take that information from the data set that has been trained on, the actual tractography information that it used to be trained on. I think it's misleading to talk about reconstruction in the paper, but I don't know what you think about that.
Yeah, I was also confused by this. I thought maybe because I don't really know much about how the model is built, but I was wondering the same thing, because yeah, it does seem like it's just matching at this point, yeah, what you said. And they do say that maybe the priors as well as the shape of the brain is more the signal that is driving than their reconstruction. So they do frame it like this in the discussion, but at the beginning, they say it more like it would work analogously to the propagator on the diffusion.
The problem is that at the end, they say that if we improve the method, that could potentially replace tractography, essentially. I mean, probably not in the same accuracy, but they kind of suggest that it could replace an actual tractography, which I think is theoretically impossible from the T1, because the thing is, I mean, with the disconnectome, we can see that there is a lot of the variability between people that is, or I mean, the disconnectome can explain most of the tractography, and it's only the variability between people that is the small parts that will be inaccurate in the estimation. So here it's the same, is that it's because the tractography of people between people is very similar. So that's what is captured by the model, and then they relate the variability in the T1 to the variability in the tractography, but there is no actual tractography information in the T1. So
Yeah,
I
I
feel that
think
it's
their
misleading.
argument for this, if I remember correctly, was that sure, it's not the same information, but if it serves the same purpose, then do we care? That's what they want to say. Like if it can
Yeah, but
still
the
help
problem
us
is that you
distinguish
you see with
clinical.
the example where the atlas works better,
Mm-hmm.
that it doesn't serve the same purpose. In some cases, it's a good proxy,
Mm-hmm.
but in some cases, it's not at all. So I think talking about reconstruction when it's not actually a reconstruction is uselessly misleading. So yeah, it's just a little bit of a pity.
Yeah, I definitely see your point.
All right, let's move on to the next question, Lilith.
Hi, thanks, Eva. I think it's this question is more also connected with the previous discussion. I didn't understand why do we need replace the diffusion MRI? Will it be closer to the ground truth Klinger dissection, or does it have more even noise? If more, then why do we need that?
Sorry, why do we need
Why do we need to replace the diffusion MRI with a new method, unless if that method is making us, for example, not use Klinger dissection as ground truth or
uh, so their argument for this method is to make it more available, to have, even if it's not the real tractography, to have something similar that allows for tractography analysis. Also on clinical data where there is no time to acquire good quality diffusion imaging, or
But can we use this method to validate existence of tracts or not?
I would say no, because it's already trained on our understanding of the tracts. So it would be a closed loop of,
Yeah.
for training, we already input our segmentations, which are already biased not biased.
Yeah. All right, thanks.
But the method would be reliable only if we had the perfect understanding of tracts and
exactly.
know whatever we have, and then we could train that model, or they could train the model so that the whole timing issue becomes relevant, right? So if you you'll be able to train it on the real ground truth that is actually there, then you could generate probably tractography basically without running diffusion MRI. And with deep learning, as far as I'm concerned, it could take like a fragment of a minute or a second even, which would be super cool. So if that works, it would be really cool.
Yeah, I mean, if it's anyhow possible to train a model based on actual brain dissections, then maybe, I don't know, but still, it would be probably a lot of noisy and still less accurate than diffusion. I don't know.
And a
you
lot
would
of
still
work
not
if you
have the right information.
Exactly, a lot of work.
What?
You still don't have the actual information
Yeah.
for the tractography of the actual patient. So
Unless you really have the tractography, like the diffusion.
yeah, but then you don't need to make a model to create the tractography. You already have it.
Right, but like for out of sample patients, you would still.
But you don't have that information for out of sample patients.
That's right, but if you have a good enough model that could actually generate diffusion.
But that's not an like you can't that would mean that you could predict a brain an individual brain from nothing.
Well, from the T1, right? T1.
Yeah, but it's just variability. It's just variability in the T1 that you see. It's not variability in the. There is no information like tractography information.
As much as I love the discussion, we are almost out of time. We're actually out of time, but Hervé, fire your last question.
Yeah. So it's just in the following discussion. So I was wondering, because I see the point about the clinical application saying that if you don't have time for a patient, you put a T1 weighted image in, you acquire a T1 weighted MRI. But I'm still thinking if you use the way they could also compare their method is to use a more standard diffusion MRI with few direction, but to do still a diffusion MRI, but in a shorter time, and try to extrapolate from this diffusion data, tractography data. So that for me will be more a refined version of it. So I don't know if they did that or if it is a solution for that.
No, but yeah, I definitely see that. Just comparing to doing it quickly versus doing this whole complicated thing. Maybe doing it quickly is good enough.
Yeah, because as Chris said, so from the T1 you don't get any diffusion information, so you are missing part of it. So, but with the diffusion, at least you have some diffusion information. You will miss the crossing fibers for sure, but at least you will get some diffusion data, real diffusion data.
Yeah.
All right. We're unfortunately out of time. Thank you so very much, Eva, for presenting that very relevant and super interesting paper. And thank you very much for everyone for participating in the discussion. Yeah, it's what a cool kickoff. So welcome back again, and see you next week where Chris would be presenting, but he is looking desperately for a buddy to swap. So
I won't be here soon.
we need to update the schedule. But anyhow, see you next week, and have a good and exciting week in science. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye.